Hello, I'm Kyle Ravensloot with ENTM News, and today we'll be discussing your favorite summertime pest, mosquitoes. We'll be talking with a few experts on the subject, plus also a few citizens who are concerned with being live guinea pigs. Please welcome Oxitec experts Nico Teo and Alicia Hollingsworth.
Thank you for having us, Kyle.
So I'll start with you, Nico. What is Oxitec, and how could they help decrease the mosquito population?
Well, Kyle, we are a British-based biotechnology company that focuses on developing genetically modified insects, or simply GMOs, which help control insect populations. You could call these living insecticides. We were founded in 2002 by Luke Alfie and David Kelly.
So Alicia, could you tell me what is a GMO mosquito?
Well, GMO mosquitoes are mosquitoes that have been implanted with a gene or bacteria which was not originally present or naturally occurring in the insect. In one case, the implant in question is a self-limiting gene that disrupts the normal processes of mosquito offspring. These offspring will in turn not survive to adulthood.
Now I have to ask, where would you release these GMO mosquitoes?
Many field trials occurred in areas where mosquito populations are large, such as humid and hot climates in the Cayman Islands, Florida, Brazil, and Malaysia. These areas saw a decrease in mosquito population of 80% to 90%. And we could release the GMO mosquitoes in these sort of areas, for example, the Key Haven area of Florida.
Very interesting. Today, I also have a parent who is very concerned with the release of these science experiments in their community. Thank you so much for joining us today, Richard. What brings you here?
As a resident of the Key Haven community, I want to know what comes in and out. This includes mosquitoes that could potentially harm my children. I don't want these bugs biting my children and spreading their diseases like malaria and Zika.
This is a common misconception. Only female mosquitoes bite humans and are the only ones that could potentially spread those diseases. GMO mosquitoes will mate with their unmodified counterparts, and the female offspring will have mouthparts similar to male mouthparts, which does not allow them to bite. The female mosquitoes, not being able to bite, will put an end to the spread of malaria and other diseases spread by mosquitoes, since the diseases are spread through the bites of female mosquitoes.
Well, why should we trust you over our traps or insecticides?
Our GMO mosquitoes are environmentally safe. Unlike traps, you don't necessarily see the bugs or traps or have to throw them away, making it aesthetically pleasing. And this also means that there's no use of chemicals in public areas, therefore it's safe for our children and our pets.
On the topic of disease, we have a CDC worker here with us to give us a little more insight of the threat they pose. Rosaline, could you just tell us how dangerous is a disease like malaria?
Sadly, if the symptoms of malaria are left untreated, a person may develop severe complications and die. The symptoms of malaria include fever, chills, and sweating after being bitten. In 2016, an estimated 216 million cases of malaria occurred worldwide and 445,000 people died, mostly children in the African region. About 1,700 cases of malaria are diagnosed in the U.S. each year. The vast majority of cases in the U.S. are in travelers and immigrants returning from countries where malaria transmission occurs, many from sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia.
And what exactly would this mean for someone like Richard and his children?
If a traveler coming from one of these areas were to come into the Key Haven area and be bitten by a mosquito, the threat of malaria increases.
So are mosquitoes even beneficial to the environment? I mean, we all hate them, so why not get rid of them altogether?
Yes and no. They feed birds and other insects. The larvae eat organisms on the water surface, clearing the gunk off bodies of water. The main ethical concern is that the long-term environmental effects of releasing GMO mosquitoes are unclear. You can guess what could happen in the short run, but it's almost impossible to know whether every species that currently relies on mosquitoes as a food source could adapt to a rapid purging of mosquitoes from the environment.
Oh, I see. So what are your thoughts about releasing these GMO mosquitoes into the wild?
Well, the negatives outweigh the harms. Not many cases of disease like malaria and Zika are found in the U.S. However, the idea of a person from another part of the world entering the U.S. and then being bitten by a mosquito poses the idea that the disease is from the affected person can be transmitted.
Well, today we have a traveler who's going to give us more insight on that tangent. Welcome, Howard. Now tell us, what precautions did you take when traveling?
So before traveling to Ethiopia in Africa, I made sure to purchase repellents with DEET, which is a natural repellent against mosquitoes. But it wasn't cheap. After arriving, I had to make sure I was covered head to toe. Used nets, and yet I was still bitten. Once I arrived home here in the States, I made sure to visit my doctors and to make sure I wasn't carrying any diseases like malaria.
So are you saying you would be saving money if the threat of biting mosquitoes decreased?
Yes, definitely. Not to mention, those fluid ounces my repellents took up could have been used on sunscreen instead.
Thank you, Howard. So tell me, Alicia, how much would it cost for companies or districts that wish to use your GMO mosquitoes?
The main concern about adopting this policy is the funding. Since this policy would have to be administered on a large scale by the government, the public would be subsidizing this policy indirectly with taxpayer dollars. Compare this to mosquito control services, for example. Mosquito control services cost an average of $350 to $500 per season for a quarter to half acre property. Per season prices can range $325 to as much as $1,900 depending on property size as well as type and frequency of treatments. Researchers are looking to see how the project can be moved forward while keeping the cost reasonable.
So Richard and Howard, how do you feel about your tax dollars going towards eliminating the threat of Zika and malaria to your kids?
I do think this would be beneficial to the US, especially warmer climates where travelers like myself may return to. This definitely makes sense when we overreact to outbursts, much like the Zika scare in 2015 and 2016.
Well, with all the facts present, saving money from repellents, aesthetics, and keeping my children safe, I think it's okay to release Oxitec's GMO mosquitoes into my community. But what about publicizing the information, or when you do it?
Although it hasn't been stated before in the past, we believe that Oxitec should make it public and ask permission of counties and districts when they wish to release GMO mosquitoes in case of public backlash.
Well, there you have it, folks. GMO mosquitoes are the future to pest control. We hope that ENTM News on Channel 105 has brought you the buzz. This is Kyle Ravensloot signing off.
Diagnosed in the U.S.
Or when you do?
EET? Wait. Shit.
Okay to release